Welcome to the Raging Heart On podcast. This is not your grandmother's Bible study. We are here to get raw and real and talk about our fucking feelings. So thank you all for joining me. Today I'm really excited. Our guest is coming all the way from the UK. James Wallis, the host of Extraordinary Podcast, has agreed to be here today. Thank you so much, James. Welcome. I want to thank you for agreeing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is awesome. You agreed to have this face-to-face with some stranger off the internet. That's really creepy. So, yeah, I'm glad you did it.
That's how magic happens. That's all.
Right.
That is the power of social media.
Exactly. So, I want to thank you for being here. And then tell us a little bit about Extraordinary. Tell us a little bit about James.
Cool, yeah, no worries. So I'm James, as you said. I'm from the UK. I am 33, although sometimes I feel like I am much older than I am. I feel like an old man sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I started a podcast in lockdown. It was one of those things where you're, locked up in my apartment, and I was looking out the window and I was like, you know what, I really need some conversations. I had done quite a bit of work on myself over the period of, I guess, the 12 months leading up to kind of the official lockdown. So I had already read things like The Velvet Rage, and I was very, very curious and very interested in other people's experiences of living with or being gay or homosexual or bi-curious or all of that fun stuff. So it kind of originated. The idea was that I wanted to speak to ordinary people who had gone on to do and see extraordinary things. So entrepreneurs, business owners, people who had overcome adversity. So they might have lost a parent or lost a sibling or battled severely with mental health or addiction. And then I started speaking to people about their coming out stories, and those episodes seemed to do very, very well. So I kind of found myself a little bit of a niche talking to LGBT people, and then of course I started making TikToks, and I just found myself becoming a bit of a voice. I don't see myself as like an ambassador or an activist or anything like that, but what I realized quite early on was that very few people in the LGBT community actually knew anything about psychology or gay shame, and actually it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And it's only, you and I kind of have the same content niche. So it's only when I started talking about it and I'm like, oh my God, this content is going viral. People want to hear more. And then I started talking a lot about gay shame, coming out, and all the fun stuff that comes with it. And it's been that way ever since.
So, I mean, you are asking others about their coming out. Tell me a little bit about your coming out story. Like, where did you grow up? What's it like to be gay in the town that you were raised in? And what was the coming out experience like for you?
Yeah, so not great, I think, is the best way to describe it. I come from northwest London, so I'm in suburbia. I am only sort of half an hour, 45 minutes away from central London. So I'm very, very close to, so I'm only about 45 minutes away from central London. So I've always kind of been a city kid, but I live in suburbia, and I'm also Jewish. So I come from a very close-knit community. I'm sure anyone listening will be familiar with kind of cultural communities and what have you. So I kind of always knew, I was one of those kids that I kind of always knew, but never really wanted to accept it. So I had lots of girlfriends, I had loads of guy friends, I had loads of girlfriends, and generally speaking had a very, very privileged and very happy childhood. And then for years, I'd say probably from the age of 14, I knew that one day I was going to have to do this thing of coming out. And every year that went by, I was like, this is the year, this is the year, this is the year. On New Year's Eve, I would go to sleep and be like, oh, maybe, in the next year, I'll tell my parents, or I'll start sort of opening up to my friends, etc. And then it wasn't until I kind of did the cowardly thing, and I waited till the day my parents dropped me off at university, which was 4.5 hours away up north, in Leeds. They dropped me off, and I messaged them. I text messaged them, and I said, sorry to
You
tell
told
you,
your parents
I'm
through text
gay.
message.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And you know what's funny is that I thought that was going to stay with me as like again another thing of shame. I didn't have the balls to do it, but going, having all these conversations about other people's coming out stories is actually a really, really common method that people use, because you're able to articulate yourself in a way on paper that you can't verbalize. And maybe I just didn't have the maturity at 18 years old to do it, but that's
I mean,
how I
I
chose to do it.
I can see breaking up over text or something. Like, kidding. But no, I actually accidentally told my mom. So
How did you do
yeah,
that?
we were going for a walk, and she kept asking these like questions. I'd started seeing a guy, and a very religious home, evangelical, and she wanted to spend time with me, and I thought she knew, because I was feeling such freedom and joy for the first time. It was so exciting. So I thought maybe she could see it radiating on me. And we go for a walk one night, and she's like asking strange questions. And I said, Mom, if you have the balls to ask, I have the balls to answer. And she was like, so are you? And I was like, yeah, I'm gay. Your son is gay. She immediately starts crying. She thought I was smoking marijuana. So how do you go back and be like, I'm kidding about the gay thing?
Yeah, you can't.
Like,
How old were you?
I think I was like 17, 18 years old.
Oh, wow.
But I had
That's
gone
amazing.
to seminary, so it was, yeah. So it was pretty shocking to her, and yeah, it was not great after that. So,
But that's the whole thing, isn't it? Because we kind of grew up in a time, I'm not sure how old you are, but you don't have to be very old to have grown up in a time where, don't ask, don't tell. And, in the UK, we have this law called Section 28, where it was basically illegal to be gay anyway. And I always talk about my parents being the product of that generation. So they didn't have kids ever expecting to have a gay child. And it was always...
you don't think
positioned, or do you know what? One of the biggest things for me was that they were genuinely shocked. Like there was a lot of tears, there's a lot of backlash for many months after, and lots of stigma for years. We didn't talk about it because they were, my mum always referred to it as a bombshell.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't know, or maybe they just weren't, but maybe they weren't exposed to LGBT people in mainstream media or in their social groups, because it literally was not talked about. There was so much stigma around gay people.
Yeah, I guess I can remember the look on their face when I would walk across the room too effeminately, or I would say the wrong thing, and I would see the shame that they felt for me that would wash over their face. And but it took my mom years to admit that she knew. And
Yeah.
she finally was like, yeah, I knew. But I think my parents were scared to say they knew, because then they were just adding, or they felt like they were adding to the bullying that I was already putting up with at school and with my peers. And so I think it was hard for them to come to terms with. I feel like they knew it, but I don't know. I can see a kid out in public and be like, yeah, she's one. Like,
Yeah,
she's gonna have a coming out story one day.
Yeah. And one of the things I had to reconcile in my head, because I remember going to my therapist and being like, this was way, years ago, during lockdown, what have you. I remember going to him and I was like, my parents hate the fact that I'm gay. Like, I know they do. Like, all the shame and all those comments like you just referred to. And I remember we all have, I guess, as gay kids, we'll have moments in our lives where our dads or our mums would kind of give us a look or say, don't sit like that, put your legs down, don't cross your legs, don't hold your bag like that. Those sorts of moments. And what I had to do was reconcile the idea that actually that was coming from a place of love. It wasn't that they were shaming us because it came from a place of malice, but it was actually they wanted to protect us from getting hurt by society subconsciously, because
absolutely.
they knew that that wasn't safe for us to be like that.
And I think it's really wise that you came to that conclusion, because you're not a parent, correct?
No.
I have a son, and I will say that my grace and understanding of my parents changed tremendously after I was a father, because I had, we hold our parents to this level of deity that they are supposed to be godlike. They're supposed to get it correct, and they don't get it correct. And, for me personally, like, my mom was 21 and had 4 children. I mean, she was a child. And I was holding her to these standards of a god. But when I became a dad at 24, and I was a mess. I mean, imagine a wounded gay boy becoming a father. I felt like...
That's amazing
so
that you did that at 24.
And so
I
inadequate. And you're doing your best. And I think it opened my eyes to forgiving my parents, but also realizing they didn't need forgiveness. They just needed grace to be fucking human.
No one got given the rule book.
No. So, yeah, I love your content. I found you on TikTok, reached out, and I was like, this is sort of where I'm, like, what I'm aiming for. Like, he gets it. He's another queer in the community that gets... Is it okay to say queer? And
yeah.
Okay, it's an okay word.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, I'm not one of them.
Okay, well, I mean, like, here,
offense.
That is a celebrated word now, that kind of encompasses the whole community. But yeah, I love what you're doing. I love the Velvet Rage was life-changing for me. I've done therapy for years, and somehow stumbled upon that book just reading over the past year, going through some things. I found that book, and it was... wow, like...
Yeah, I always think the book finds you when you need it, when you're ripe for it. Because I think deep down, for years before I kind of, the penny drops, I kind of knew what I was doing. I think we all secretly know that the behaviour of taking thirst traps or going to the clubs that you probably shouldn't be going to, or getting yourself involved with certain crowds that you shouldn't be involved with, or doing things to get more likes or more followers on Instagram. I think deep down we secretly know what we're doing. But I guess what I think a lot of people in the gay community, and this doesn't come from a place of me patronizing anyone, but I think what people fail to understand is the deeper reason behind it, and it all sits with your wounded child and that shame. Yeah. And then it's that whole kind of concept of overcompensating and seeking validation. I think people like to say, oh no, but I genuinely love clubbing, I love the gym, and I love this, which is, I love that for them as well. But, is that truly making them, is that joy? Is that their higher purpose in life? And I think that's worth discussing. For me, and I guess, you're a little younger than me, I'm gonna be 44, 45 this year. That'll happen. You'll forget your age. But I really didn't know what was going on with me. I didn't understand that, I got really into fitness and lost a ton of weight, and I had the look, but those were the moments I was the most insecure
about my body. And, you know, in the book, it talks about getting to like stage 3, getting to stage 2, and then so many people would foreclose and return back to stage 2, right when they're about to cross to that next place in their life. And I think I arrived at the door of stage 3 so many times and foreclosed. You know, I knew I was seeking something.
Yeah,
and
you find yourself going back and forwards, and it's not a linear journey. I think, you know, for those who are questioning or asking like, what the hell stage 1, 2 and 3, I think it's basically the order of events in which you find your kind of inner peace, or you find your joy, or you basically the gay shame that we're all born with, I guess, kind of dissolves itself. But yeah, I think depending on, you know, I've had relationships, for example, that forced me back into stage 2 because the foundations of that relationship was so insecure and so toxic that I found myself doing things for attention from other guys, because I didn't feel safe. And if you're dating someone, or you're surrounded by a group of friends who are also deeply insecure and are displaying toxic actions or whatever, like, that is really, really unhelpful, and it's really detrimental to your personal development.
Oh yeah, and I think for me, like, just getting through the book and realizing where I was at and what this uncomfortable feeling was inside me, this, you know, I say the universe will make you as uncomfortable as it needs to make you in order to create a doorway for change. And I was just not happy. And last year I was at the beach, and we're sitting at the beach. I look at my husband and best friend and her wife, and I just lost a friend, but I looked around and I remember, and I told them out loud, I was like, I should be happy. Like, this is the dream. Like, I've had the success. I have the relationship. We're at the beach. We're looking at the ocean. This is, why can't I feel this? And yeah, it was just sort of the universe pushing me to find joy without validation. And I have to question myself with this. I don't know if you struggle with doing the podcast. Like, I have to constantly ask myself, like, what's the driving force? What's pushing you to do this? Is it the validation? And it's a trap. The internet,
it
TikTok.
is a yeah, all of the above. I've had this conversation so many times in therapy, because I'm almost going to my therapist saying, I'm doing really well on TikTok, my podcast is flying, I'm just nervous that I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. Like, and people, my friends, have asked me quite, you know, bluntly, and they've said, are you doing it for attention? Are you just attention seeking? Like, why? Like, why are you doing this? What's the objective? What's the end goal? Are you trying to be famous? Are you trying to become an influencer? And it's genuinely none of the above. And it's taken me a long time, like 2-3 years, for me to kind of, again, reconcile this idea of like what I'm doing, and it's actually part of the journey of self-discovery, because what happens is, and Alan Downs in Velvet Rage discusses this, it's like, once you've got to stage 3 and you have found inner peace and inner joy, what you then go on to do is start to help others and start to educate. And I genuinely feel like I'm brinking on that area of my life where, okay, I am so mind blown by what I've learned and what I've discovered about myself and the community through therapy, through my podcast, through making TikToks and engaging with the community, that I find, yes, there is something quite self-indulgent, and I do get something out of it, the conversation, because I get to talk about all the things I like to talk about. But I genuinely, you know, we wouldn't be having this conversation if my content hadn't touched you and resonated. And then we create this podcast, and then I don't know how many people will be listening to this, but the idea is that they
millions.
Yeah, obviously you're going to be number one, Joe Rogan, and then you.
You know,
but that will help so many people.
My goal is that this reaches the ears that it should, that this does what the universe has for it to do. When I started posting on TikTok and really started posting some pretty vulnerable videos, my goal was vulnerability. I spent my whole life, everything that the world saw as a success was for them. It didn't feel like a success. I would reach a finish line and I would go, this is not what this is supposed to feel like.
Yeah.
You know, in the hair industry, I went as far as I wanted to go. I reached it and it didn't feel right. It was because it was never for me. It was to fit in, and it was for the world to accept me and to give me validation, say I'm valuable. And that drug of validation, man, like the high gets shorter and shorter. But with this, it's really been cool. You know, I've told stories about wanting to throw a fucking ball, like, because I didn't do it as a kid. And
it's like, you know, I similar to you, or to that kind of story, is like a lot of gay people I know don't really like having birthday parties because there's so much trauma from when they were kids about being exposed and, you know, not allowing themselves to have fun because they feel not worthy of it. So it's really sad.
Or if you had fun and then you accidentally, you know, got really sissy and giddy and I mean, so you were always aware, keenly aware of the position of your body, the pitch of your voice, and
self-editing is a fact of life for a gay man. Certainly, I mean, I'd like to think it's becoming less of an issue, but certainly in the 90s, even the noughties, me going through high school and then university, like, I was absolutely self-censoring, self-editing. I couldn't play certain songs on my iPod at the time, or, you know, when you meet new people and they're like, oh, so what music are you into? And I'm like, oh,
Britney,
rap.
bitch.
I hate it. Yeah, but really, I was listening to like Broadway show tunes, and
you were real gay.
We do that. Yeah, proper gay. I love the stage. But it's so funny. And I talked about this on a recent TikTok video. It's because each time that we're self-editing and we're telling people that we like rap music and we like hip hop and we're changing the way that we dress, we lose track of who we are. We don't even know who we are. We don't even know what we like anymore. And then we grow up and all of a sudden you're 25 and you're like, what the fuck? Like, what am I?
Yeah.
Who am I? And that's kind of where I ended up. And back to the point around why we create content, and I'm sure you're the same. I wanted to create a podcast because I wanted to be the person I needed when I was 16. So if there is a 16-year-old who's battling with sexuality and there's, you know, two gay guys, one in their 30s, one in their 40s, talking about how, you know, how much validation they don't need or how much self-acceptance they've got, then that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, the other day we were shopping and he must have been 14, 13. We had on pink Hello Kitty t-shirts and, you know, our Hoochie Daddy shorts, and we're out just shopping at a craft store, and this kid walks by and he nervously gets excited and he goes, I like your t-shirts. And it took me back to a moment. I remember the first time I saw a human homosexual in person, and it was like the craziest feeling because I was like, oh my God, there's more. Like, if there's this one, there must be more than just me and this person. And it was a man that was probably in his 30s. Back then he seemed 70 because I was, you know, 10 years old. And I just remember not being able to take my eyes off of him because he was gay. He was like me. And I'd never been in that close proximity with another queer. And I don't even know that I knew what it was called.
Yeah, you find yourself I remember walking through the streets of London. I must have been with my parents, going to see a show or going to visit someone. And you walk through the streets and you see like two men holding hands, for example, which was a very, very rare occurrence. But like, I obviously couldn't show that I was interested or I couldn't say anything. But God, my eyes were absolutely fixated. And there was, even, up until my late teens, whenever you came across gay people, there was just this intrigue, this curiosity and this fascination that would overtake me. Because again,
Yes.
it comes back. I think I've always been like psychologically minded, but I always used to ask myself, oh, I wonder how that works. I wonder if their parents know. I wonder if they're happy. Are they allowed to do that? Do they have a job? And like, I was always trying to see, oh my God, maybe one day, maybe I could be that person.
And it was never.
And then, yeah, you see more on TV.
With the political climate right now and the whole people calling it grooming, just to be yourself in public. But it was never sexual back then. It was just the fact that I recognized there was another one in the world. And honestly, because I saw that there was another one in the world, I knew I didn't have to die. I knew, like, it gave me options to live because there were other people living and they were like me and they made it. And I think it's one of the things that gave me the drive to make it, to get to the age that it gets better, So yeah, that was.
And that's why pride is so important, and it's why I take it very seriously, because I never used to be someone that ever. I was that kind of gay, and loads of us are like that, where we have a little bit of internal homophobia, and you kind of would be like, I'm gay, but I'm not like that gay. I'm not like a queen. I don't do drag, or you'd always be like, you'd have to kind of caveat what type of gay you are, or like I'm a bear, or I'm masculine, or I'm like all that kind of stuff. But since I've been doing the work and what have you, I take it very seriously that we as a community are one collective, and we all need to work together to help bring people up. Because you're absolutely right. I think we as kids in the closet would kind of look for any sort of glimmer of hope, and the smallest bit of hope was so powerful because it meant that you didn't have a suicidal thought that week, because we all know what the suicide rates are in the LGBT community, and it is horrific, and we just need to like bring each other up.
Oh yeah, and this tribalism, I think the tribalism in our community is just another expression of the shame. It's
100%. Of course it is.
I'm not that gay. And when I was in the salon, I can remember clients saying, well, you're not gay like that. And right before I got out of that industry and being a salon owner, I remember looking at my client and was like, yeah, I'm exactly that. The thing that makes them homosexual, the things that they do that you think are just so terrible, I do those same things. Like, with my husband, like, I do the nasty gay stuff just like them. I'm just as gay as them. And I guess there was something changing in me. I was so sick of being acceptable. I mean, I think it's amazing that you came to this place at your age. Man.
Well, I think it's just I think it's circumstances. I think there's various events, and everyone gets to it at different stages. And like I said, it's not linear. I'm definitely not the finished product. I can definitely find myself making judgments, or stuff that I'm working with my therapist at the moment is like trying to not always come from a place of judging. I feel like it's a really common trait in the community to always come from a place of judgment and contempt rather than acceptance and consideration, because our whole lives I've had to be like, I played the role of victim. I grew up for 25 years thinking that the world had done me a disservice, and it was so unfair that I was born this way, and I didn't want to be this way. I wanted to be heterosexual, get married, have kids, and live a happy, normal life where I didn't have to self-edit every single day and make content about my sexuality, which is, you know, not the easiest thing in the world to do when my heterosexual peers are busy playing tennis and football and just getting on with their lives, getting married and having kids. But I don't want to come, like, I'm like refusing to victimize myself anymore, because I was born this way. We all are. It's not a lifestyle choice, and we just have to sort of try and be the best versions of ourselves as possible.
Well, I think it is incredible. I think what you're doing is necessary, and I feel like there's a shift happening. Maybe it's because I've gotten to stage 3. I recognize what that is. The stage of authenticity and vulnerability, and it's a practice. When your whole life has been inauthentic, and then you get to this stage, it's definitely a practice. It is it's something you have to check.
Yeah, and what I tell my friends, 100%. It's definitely work, and I speak to all my gay friends about this all the time. I'm like, please read Velvet Rage, please learn about authenticity, blah blah blah. But the challenge back is always like, but it feels restrictive. It feels like what the rule book says is that I can't really do the things that I love doing, which typically is kind of validation seeking behavior. But what I always try and explain is, when you reach that level, when you get to stage 3, and I'm not saying it's not like a cult, it's not like a faith, it's like a feeling, it's an emotion. It is so powerful, and I get to go to bed at night feeling at peace and not scrolling through social media or thinking about what the latest selfie is going to be, of trying to get people to sort of like me. Because really, every time you upload that thirst trap or upload that selfie or whatever, what your wounded child is doing is fighting for oxygen and fighting for love and to be seen and to be told that they're worthy of something. But when you get to a stage where you feel truly, truly authentic from within, all of those pressures, that feeling, that overwhelming need to have lots of friends and be seen and to be good at something in the arts or to have the best fashion sense or the latest clothing or the nicest car, all of that just dissolves and evaporates into thin air, and it is the most liberating, wholesome feeling, and it just requires work.
It changes every aspect. You know, the thing I didn't expect for this vulnerability, authenticity era, who knew it was going to make sex better and more meaningful? And it changes every aspect of your life. But yeah, I mean, I have found that it has, just allowing myself to be vulnerable with my husband. We've been together for 9 years. This
Amazing.
shift literally started happening at the end of last year.
Yeah, it absolutely changes the communication with your, not just your relationships, but your friendships as well. You know, if something's not working for you, rather than, because what I used to do, for example, is lash out. I'll be like, fuck you don't get to say that to me, like, blah, blah, blah. Whereas now, I'm just, like, a bit more chill. Like, I'm like, that's cool. Like, I actually disagree with you because of X, Y, and Z and whatever. And same with, you know, my partner now. Like, we communicate like adults because we're both kind of, you know, in the book, in the Velvet Rage, they talk about the disadvantages or the issues with having two people who haven't reached their authentic stages.
Yeah.
And it's really toxic. It can be really fiery. And Lord knows I've had so many fucking relationships where kind of I've been in stage 1 and they've been in stage 3, or we've both been in stage 2, and it's like horrific. But when you're an adult and you get to communicate with your partner as an adult and be vulnerable and say like, you've really upset me, or you blah blah blah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, and you know, when you first get to this place, you get so excited. Like you said, you want everybody to read the book. You want
Yeah.
you want to share it with everybody. Not everybody is receptive, and the longer I'm in this process, I'm showing so much more grace to the people who aren't to that stage, and I'm not really judging them so harshly anymore, and I'm able to allow my partner to work on his trauma, to work on his shame at his pace and not at mine. I am, you know, I'm one of those people that if I get excited about something, if I get turned on to something, I want to turn everybody onto it. I would have been an amazing narco drug lord, and because if I like it, like I want everybody involved. If I get on a diet, like I'm giving advice to everybody, but for the first time that need is not there as much, and this podcast is more about listening. I want to hear people's stories. I want to hear what they've learned on this. I know it's cliche, this journey. I'm really interested in the soul of people, and I'm really interested in the soul of our community.
Yeah, and there's 1,000,001 different journeys, and everyone is going at their own sort of pace. They've got their own life experiences that will shape their future, and people get to different stages at different lives. And Lord knows, like I said, I am definitely not the finished products, and I still sit here sometimes and I look at other people and I think, oh, I wish I had that. They seem happier than me. I start, you know, when you see other gay couples on the street and they've got kids and they've got houses and dogs and like they've got their shit together, I'm like, should I be at that stage? Like, why aren't I there? Like, what do I need to do? And it is, you know, it's you know, human
Trust me,
nature.
those
to
people
do
with the
compassion.
house and the child, like, may not actually be to the place you're at yet. Because, you know, my son is going to be 19. I have an adult child that I still cook
wild.
breakfast for every day. And I walked by him the other day and I was like, whose baby are you? And he's a grown man now. He's like, yours, daddy. it's
I love that.
But yeah, and I'm just now
did
getting
you decide
here.
to have kids?
Oh, it's a long story.
Well,
but yeah, I decided
that was a big topic for the community.
It was it was a really messy decision that turned out to be the most beautiful thing I've ever accomplished in my life.
Amazing.
Yeah, he changed me. But yeah, I love being a dad, and I've always said if people knew how difficult being a parent was, no one would do it. But if people knew what it felt like, everyone would do it. It's so hard, and it's so rewarding and scary. And now we're at the point that I've done everything I can do. Now it's time to see what he focuses on with his children, and then I'll know where I fucked up. You know, because I over-exaggerated the things I wish my parents had given me with him, and now, I just have to sit and wait to see how I fucked up with him and what he exaggerates with his children. So,
when it goes one of two ways, you either overcompensate on the things that were lacking, or you double down on the fuck ups, basically. But it's all a chain reaction, and like we said at the very beginning of the podcast, like there's no rule book. Like my parents certainly weren't given one. I've got about 25 kids in my life. I'm at that stage where everyone's having kids, and I see it with my own eyes. Like everyone's got their own parenting style. Everyone kind of communicates in a different way to their kids, and that is the story of human nature. Like that's the circle of life. So
absolutely,
nothing we can do.
This has been great. So this is where we get to the point that I want to see if you can handle taking some hard ones.
Good.
And that's our
Okay.
just some like fast questions. I want you to give me some answers. You cool with playing this game?
Sure. Love it.
Awesome. So what excites you?
Making things. Creating things.
Craft projects?
Like podcasts. No, like I really love learning how to do stuff. Like I self-taught how to make podcasts and make TikToks, and even though it seems very easy, like I'm sure you will appreciate, like it's not fucking easy. I don't find it easy. So what gets me excited is actually creating content and getting it out there.
That's awesome. What makes you feel small?
Losing. I'm very competitive, and yeah, I don't like rejection like many people, which is also part of the theme of this podcast. But you know, losing out on a job, not getting the promotion you wanted, not losing weight as fast as you wanted, or not lifting as much as you wanted in the gym, like they are kind of everyday battles that I have in my head, and sure everyone else listening does as well. And they make you feel small for a moment, but again, it's about checking in with your wounded child, because it's that smaller version of me that is feeling that shame, and it's not my adult version. So that's when I pick myself up and just get over myself, basically.
Oh, yeah. I posted a video the other day about the wounded child because I got my feelings hurt. Someone asked me if my feelings were hurt, and I was not brave enough to say yes. And which triggered me to start binge eating and just freezing. And I had to go back because I've realized like that wounded child is always going to be wounded.
Yeah.
And the goal is not to
literally it.
The goal is not to repair that child. It's to let that child trust you. Because you know, like you can't reparent the wounded child inside you if you're a fucking hot mess. Like this kid has been like treated by terrible hot mess adults before, so the last thing you can do is repair that child while you're still a fucking hot mess. So you got to do some healing first.
That's it. The wounded child is wounded. You can't unwound the child. So that's one of my penny drop moments as well that I got from therapy, is like you can't go back in time and kind of fix the wounded child. It's always going to stay there. It's about learning to live with it and protecting it and nurturing it. And you know, I kind of view it as me being the big brother to him
and building a trust with this child within you. So yeah, I think
absolutely love that.
Beautiful. What would you warn your childhood self about?
Fuck boys. I would just like relationships and looking after yourself, because it is brutal out there, and I think particularly in the gay community, like there is a lot of heartbreak, and because we are men, we find it very difficult to be vulnerable. So I think I would have wanted to have thicker skin when I went into my dating era, because none of that really ended very well.
Oh yeah, this is all great. I'm so glad we did this today.
Me too.
I'm so glad we got to have this conversation, and I hope we can do it again. I like your point of view, and I love that you're striving for this. But tell everyone listening, if someone's listening, they want to listen to your podcast, where do they find that?
So if you would like to hear my voice more, good for you, please search Extraordinary with James Wallis on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find me on Instagram, and you can find me on TikTok as well.
YouTube also. I watch you while I'm on the
YouTube as well. Yeah,
the treadmill. Like I see you on YouTube. So yeah, I really want to thank you. This has been really cool to have this conversation and connect, and hopefully this is going to be a lasting thing that we can have these conversations, and you know,
I can see part 2, part 3. Yeah, me too. I love these conversations, and I love kind of what you stand for as well, and I'm wishing you every luck in the world for this, and I will kind of be your biggest cheerleader. So hope lots of people listening kind of subscribe, like, and share with friends and family, because more of these conversations need to be had.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was really nice talking to you, and I can't wait to have these conversations more with you. Thank you, James.
Amazing. Thanks, Brian. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Amazing.